What if Neo was in MHA? Chapter 10. Roaring Sports Festival. A week had passed and now it was time for the UA Sports Festival to begin. During that time Izuku and Neo had returned to UA and joined the others in training for the sports festival. Everyone in Class 1AM were now gathered in a waiting room. "Oh, man. I wanted to wear my costume," Mina said. "At least everyone will be in uniforms. That'll keep things fair, right?" Ojiro said. "I wonder what the first round is gonna be," Sato wondered. "No matter what comes, we have no choice but to deal with it," Tokoyami said. "Yeah," Shuji said. "Everyone, are you ready? We will be entering soon," Taida said, coming into the waiting room. "Midori," Ashoto said. "Oh. Todoroki. What is it?" Izuku asked. "Looking at things objectively, I think I'm stronger than you," Shoto said. "Huh. Yeah," Izuku said. "But All Might has his eye on you, doesn't he?" "I'm not trying to pry about that. But I'm going to beat you," Shoto said. "Oh. Is the best in the class making a declaration of war?" Kaminari asked. Hey. Why are you picking a fight all of a sudden?" "Not now, we're about to start," Kirishima said. "We're not here to be each other's friends. Don't forget. This isn't a team effort," Shoto said. "Wow, I can't believe the so-called strongest in our class is picking on a disabled kid," Cinder said. "What? That's not what Shoto said. And for your information, I'm the strongest. I just don't need to go around showing off because that's all I have in my life. Today I'll show you what true power looks like. So you better come at with everything you have, because your ice alone won't be enough," Popsicle Cinder said. "Hey now, there's no need for name-calling," Kirishima said. "Todoroki, I don't know what you're thinking when you say you'll beat me, but of course you're better than me. I think you're more capable than most people. Looking at it objectively. But, everyone. The students from the other courses are aiming for the top with everything they've got. I can't afford to fall behind. So, I'm going to give it everything I've got. And so should you, all of you," Izuku said. "Fine," Shoto said. Present Mike then called the students out, introducing each class one by one until all were in the field in the center of the arena. Standing on a stage before them was the pro hero, Midnight. "Time for the student pledge," Midnight said. Parts of the crowd were existed to Midnight. "Quiet, everyone. Representing the students is Izuku Midoriya from Class 1, Midnight said. "Huh? Me? But why?" Izuku questioned. "Probably because you achieved first place in the entrance exam," Cinder said. "But I'm Izuku said. "Stop being such a baby and get up there, stud," Cinder said, hitting Izuku on the back. Izuku looked towards Neo, who gave him a reassuring smile. Izuku then walked up to the stage. "Hey, isn't that the kid that got seriously hurt during the USJ incident?" a man asked. "Yeah, it is. How could UA allow a student to be hurt so bad, especially with All Might being there?" another man said. "Apparently All Might was wounded by one of the villains and another had a teleportation quirk. That kid supposedly saved All Might from a sneak attack," a woman said. The crowd continued to murmur. Izuku was now stood on the stage. "I'll keep this brief. We are here today to show the world who we are, or to prove something. But whatever the reason you're here, give it your all," Izuku said. The students and crowd cheered. Izuku then stepped down from the stage. "See, I knew you could handle it," Cinder said. Izuku smiled. "Now, let's get started right away. The first game is what you'd call a qualifier. Every year, many drink their tears here. Now, here is the fateful first game. This year, it's this. An obstacle race. All 11 classes will participate in this race. The course will be the outer circumference of this stadium, about 4 kilometers. Our school's selling point is freedom. As long as you stay on the course, it doesn't matter what you do. Now, take your places everyone, Midnight said. As the students began to line up, Izuku looked towards the teacher's viewing area where All Might was watching him. After Izuku and Neo had returned to UA, All Might had invited them to lunch so they could talk. All Might had originally wanted Izuku to announce himself as the new up-and-coming symbol of peace. But after his injuries, All Might decided that now wasn't the time. All he asked for now was for Izuku to do his best. Start, Midnight yelled, starting the race. Okay, here's the play-by-play. Are you ready to do the commentary, Mummy Man Present Mike asked, a heavenly bandaged Aizawa. You're the one who forced me to come, Aizawa said. Let's get started right away, Mummy Man. What should we pay attention to in the early stages, Present Mike asked. The door, Aizawa said. Ha, Present Mike said. A bunch of students were packed in the narrow tunnel that lead out of the arena. Students were pushing and shoving each other in an attempt to be the first out of the tunnel and get ahead of the others. All of a sudden, the ground began to be covered in ice, freezing several students in place. Shoto then emerged from the tunnel, entering first place. However, he wasn't able to freeze his classmates in place. The ice was then turned into steam. What the, Shoto said. Nice try, Popsicle, but I told you your ice would have no effect on me, Cinder said. Damn it, Shoto said. Shoto then used his quirk to push himself forward. But before Shoto could gain any ground, he was met by an army of robots from the entrance exam. Obstacles have shown up suddenly. Starting with the first barrier. It's a Robo Inferno, Present Mike said. So this is what the other students faced in their entrance exam, Shoto said. Shoto was about to freeze the robots when... Out of the way, Popsicle, Cinder yelled, running past. One of the 0-pointers went to punch Cinder, but she dodged to the side last minute. Strength will not bring you victory, big guy. Let's melt you down into something more useful, Cinder said. Cinder then put her hands on the robot. She then superheated the 0-pointer's structure before running ahead. The left side of the 0-pointer began to melt, causing it to lose balance and begin to fall. Shoto quickly followed after Cinder before the robot hit the ground. Amazing. Cinder Fall from Class 1 has defeated a 0-pointer with such ease, and has also managed to block the path of her competitors with an impressive display. While her actions were logical and strategic. That light show gave an opponent an opportunity. Aizawa said. Wow. Cinder's quirk is amazing. I'll have to ask her about it, Izuku said. Neo pouted and the stomped on Izuku's foot. Ow. Neo, Izuku yelled. Neo pointed forward. Right. I can think about that later, I have a race to win, Izuku said. Izuku, Neo and several other students began to go over or around the fallen 0-pointer. As Izuku was running through the army of robots, he noticed a girl with mint green hair on the ground about to be attacked by a robot. Izuku quickly ran to the girl's aid. Izuku quickly destroyed the robot. Hey, are you okay? Izuku asked, holding his hand out to her. Yeah. Thanks. My quirk isn't that useful against robots. See you around, kid, the girl said. The girl then took off. Izuku was about to follow, but he saw a piece of the 0-pointer. He decided to grab it, thinking it would be useful later on. Several students had now made it to the second obstacle. It was a giant chasm with several pillars of stone connected together with lines of rope. If you thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how you feel about the second one. If you fall, you're out. If you don't wanna fall, then crawl. It's the fall, Present Mike said. When did they even have time to build something like this? Eureka asked. Ajue then stepped forward before leaping onto a rope before crawling the rest of the way. She's fast, Mina said. Neo then ran past the two onto the rope and continued to run across it with ease. And she's even faster, Mina said. How is that even possible? Eureka asked. Behind them, a girl from the support course used her gear to begin clearing the chasm. Way up in front, Cinder was using her quirk to superheat the ground, causing small explosions that she used to launch herself from pillar to pillar. Meanwhile, Shoto was using his ice to slide across the ropes. Izuku used one for all to cross the gaps, but due to the weight of the piece of the zero-pointer, he couldn't jump the bigger gaps, leading him to either go around the bigger gaps or crawl across the ropes. Back up in front, Cinder had come to the final obstacle. It was a minefield. Cinder began to slowly make her way through the minefield. Can't use my quirk here. It could set off the mines and make it easier for the others to catch up, Cinder thought. Cinder then looked back to see Shoto doing the same. Seems he understands this obstacle as well, Cinder thought. A short while later, Izuku and several other students had made it to the minefield. Izuku looked forward to see Cinder and Shoto up in front. He then noticed Neo and the green-haired girl from before making their way through the minefield at a much quicker pace than everyone else. Izuku then got an idea. Back up in front, Bakugo was using his quirk to fly over the mines. Your declaration of war was to the wrong person, Bakugo yelled, attacking Shoto. Bakugo and Shoto started to fight as they continued forward. Cinder looked back to see them. Boys, Cinder said. All of a sudden, there was a huge explosion from the back of the minefield, causing everyone to turn and look. What's with that huge explosion in the back? That was way more powerful than it should be present, Mike yelled. Izuku then came rocketing out of the pink smoke. What just happened? Whatever the case, Class 1A's Izuku Midoriya is suddenly in hot pursuit of first place present, Mike yelled. You crazy bastard, Cinder said. Izuku had used the piece of the zero-pointer to dig up the mines and place them close together, allowing him to create an explosion with enough force to send him flying over the minefield. Deku. What the hell do you think you're doing? Bakugo yelled, flying at Izuku. Shoto used his ice to create a path to the end of the minefield. Look at that plot twist. Those two aren't fighting anymore. They are chasing Midoriya. Huh. What's this? Fall is standing still. What is she doing present? Mike questioned. Izuku was on a direct course to crash into Cinder. Cinder! Get out of the way, Izuku yelled. Cinder just smirked. Cinder caught the piece of the zero-pointer Izuku was holding on to, whilst at the same time Bakugo and Shoto were just passing them. Make a name for yourself, Izuku, Cinder yelled. Cinder then superheated the piece of metal and the ground at the same time. The simultaneous explosions sent Izuku flying forward whilst knocking over Shoto and Bakugo. Izuku landed outside of the minefield and ran as fast as he could towards the finish line, though Cinder, Shoto and Bakugo were slowly catching up. The first to make it back into the stadium is Izuku Midoriya present, Mike yelled. The crowd cheered. Cinder then crossed the finish line, finishing in second place, followed by Shoto in third, and Bakugo in fourth. Well done, Izuku, Cinder said. Thanks, but I couldn't have won without your help, Izuku said. Of course you could. I just gave you a little push, Cinder said. Neo then crossed the finish line and came up to Izuku and began looking over him. Neo. You don't need to worry. I'm fine, Izuku said. You don't need to worry about him. I know how to use me quirk properly, Cinder said. Neo just stared and Cinder. A short while later the race had come to an end. Only the top 42 will advance to the next round. Let's see what we have in store for you next. Prepare yourself for this. A cavalry battle, Midnight announced. Let me explain. The participants can form teams of 2 to 4 people as they wish. It's basically the same as a regular cavalry battle, but the one thing that's different is based on the results of the last game. Each person has been assigned a point value. And the points assigned go up by 5 starting from the bottom. But for the person who achieved first place, Their point value is 10 million, Midnight said. 10 million, Izuku yelled. Izuku now felt all eyes on him. End of chapter 10.